Well, g'day, it's Jono Brake here with another round of Monday Myth Check. Today I'm coming to you from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm on site with a client, and we just had an interesting conversation this morning with a different client, and we started talking about trust and this idea of trust being so important to the business. And I wanted to really look at this concept because there was like this tension that went on between, we want to create this relational, purposeful, friendly environment, but we've also got to do business, right? We've got to make money. We don't want to end up being another non-profit, for-profit business, which there are a lot of. And so it created a really interesting and very, almost a tense discussion. I see this quite a lot. And so it got me thinking about this idea is, can we balance relationship and business together? Should we balance relationship and business? So when we say relationship, should we balance the personal side of business with the tactical, with the dollars and so forth? And so I know there's people who say, look, it's not personal, it's business, or look, we've got to get the business done, so let's stop this behavior, stop doing these things, whatever. But I really want to call this out as a myth, right? That's something that we should really check. How are we doing here? Now, at the end of the day, there's a couple of things that go on. If I put relationships, and I know everyone understands relationships are important, but if I put relationships on the back burner, right, and over process and the business and dollars and all those sorts of things, then there's going to be a few challenges here, okay? So the first one is this idea of trust, okay? Trust is the currency of leadership, okay? The idea that I can trust you, you can trust me, we can get something done together, all those sorts of things. Trust is built on a whole bunch of different things, expectations, needs, promises, all sorts of things. We know what it is when it's broken. We probably struggle to define what it is when it's there. But this idea that I can trust is really important, and trust is highly relational. It's highly personal. It can depend on just simply the different communication styles you and I have and how we connect as to whether I trust you or not. I was having a conversation with a guy last night at my son's soccer match, and it was really interesting. I loved the conversation. It was fast. It was very entrepreneurial. The guy was a really nice guy, very friendly, very open about some of his experiences. And then a person sitting next to me had a whole different experience of that same conversation. Again, trust isn't just what's being said. It isn't just what's being presented, but it can also be the way we're interpreting it. And so we've got to understand that with different people. So for me as a leader, if I'm serving someone who is a quieter, calmer, less entrepreneurial person, there's a different conversation, there's different energy that I bring to that, right? So the relationship's important. The second thing I want to say is, look at here is this idea. So when we start to look at this idea of, just get to the point, deliver the results, it's not about the relationship, it's about the business, is this idea of our yes being yes, okay? Really, really important. And it's interesting in this case because there are certain cultures where just because they say yes, in fact, there's certain styles where just because they say yes, doesn't mean they're agreeing with you, or doesn't mean they're agreeing to a situation. So for example, I work a lot in DISC, okay? And there's one DISC, dominant influencer stabilizer controller, or conscientious. The stabilizers are really interesting because these are people who are kind of more reserved in their behaviors, more poised to action, but they're highly relational. They love interaction with people. And so they deeply care about team. They deeply care about being liked. They care about, having these frameworks around them that in a sense keep them safe, but also make sure other people are safe as well. So what can happen in a conversation with the stabilizer type is you're talking to them about ideas and things, and they're just sitting there going, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so if you're like me, often you misinterpret that as they're saying yes, okay? And a stabilizer will straight away tell you we're not saying yes. We're just agreeing, we're listening, we're taking in, and we're telling you we know what's going on. So just because I'm saying yes doesn't mean that my yes is yes, okay? Now, that also means that we don't want to say yes and a yes is a no, but just be careful about those sorts of things, right? Just what you're seeing, but also what you're doing there as a leader. If you're nodding and agreeing to a bunch of stuff, you might be agreeing to things that people are taking action on. So be very careful there. The third one is this idea that, when we start thinking about the whole relational piece, is it takes a team. It's interesting, we call our businesses companies, a company of people. It actually comes from a French word that really describes this band of I don't call it a band of brothers, probably not that tight, but certainly like a family, like a connection, like a community, where we're all getting together on a common purpose and a common goal. And so this idea that I have to be in relationship, I have to have other people, there's got to be other people I can work with. There are skill sets that I have that other people don't have. For example, you would never put me in charge of the finances in your company, but you might put me in charge of, the kind of the people, culture, strategy, even the marketing, those sorts of pieces, the communication pieces, because that's stuff I know very well and have been doing for 30 plus years. So there are certain things when we say, so I know the strengths I have, I know the style I operate under. This plays in marriages, this plays in relationships, this plays in business, and on boards, in all sorts of different environments. The bottom line is that I need other people to help me through that process and to help me on that journey. So the relationship is massively important for me to be able to be a successful business. So I want you to take this away and have a think about it, because just because it's business, the relationships don't matter. This is the myth we want to really bust today. I don't want to bust it, I just want to check it, right? Because there's some areas where we can get too relational and business doesn't get done. So in just wrapping up today, I want you to look at all the relationships you have, the people you have around you. When you start to look at from frameworks, maybe you can use the framework I use, which is attitude, aptitude, and skill, in terms of how you rank and look at all the people that are in your world, particularly in your business world and in your team, and what are the attitude and aptitude and what's the skill set of those people, in that order, by the way, because it's got to be about the person first, their cultural fit, who they are as a person, and then how they bring their skill to bear, because skill still matters. Competence is important. At the end of the day, that's a slightly longer Monday Myth Check today, but at the end of the day, what we really want to understand is that just because it's business doesn't mean it's relational. It really, really does. Relationships matter in business. In fact, relationships drive success business. That's it for today. I'm Jono Brake, as always. Enjoy the journey.